How's it going, guys, and welcome to the main channel. We have another video today, and this is gonna be a review for Steelrising. So Steelrising is an interesting game. As you guys may know, I am a huge Souls fan, and I really love playing through these games. I love the style of them, I love the gameplay of it, and I honestly never heard of this one before. I never heard of Steelrising until I saw some reviews come up a day or two ago, and the moment that I saw it, I was like, I want to check it out. I see something special about it. Some of the reviews were positive, most of them were more on the, kind of like, oh, okay. And but I really didn't really see many reviews from pretty much like people that are fans of Souls games. I seen people see reviews from some people that play Souls games, but not from like fans, And so I was like, I really want to talk about the game. And honestly, overall, this one actually surprised me quite a bit. And be really honest with you, although I do like Souls-like, and I like Dark Souls games, and I like some of the Neo games and that kind of stuff, I am actually not a fan of most Souls-like that are made by indie developers, and that's not like a knock on them or anything like that. But the problem with a lot of the indie development games that are on that Dark Souls type, the gameplay seems to typically miss something that makes the Souls games like really good, and I don't really know exactly why this happens or how it happens or anything. All I know is that most of the games, when it comes to like small indie developers games, they tend to miss something, and it tends not to feel really good as far as like the game that will be on that end of the, like on the cyber, no, I'm sorry, on the Souls like in genre, so ends up kind of feeling kind of a little bit weird. However, this one is an interesting case. Patters is the developer. I heard of them. They're a French developer, and they have worked on games all the way from 360 all the way up until now, but none of them has been really like very big games. I think the biggest game that I played from them was Greedfall a while ago, but that game definitely did not surprise me or like grab me like much on it. And I frankly did play Technomancer, and that was a terrible game. It was also kind of on that same vein of like that kind of stuff and everything, but honestly I never really played a game from them that I was like, oh man, I'm really looking forward to this game. Not saying that they're a bad developer or anything, I just never really played anything that, to me at least personally, grabbed me in a sense. But I played Steelrising, and honestly, this game shocked me so many ways. It's really good. I know I know I started kind of a negative sense because I didn't know much about them. And again, as far as like indie development goes, when it comes to this kind of stuff, they tend not to be very good. But this one has all the check marks as far as like what a Souls game typically is. The bonfire, the Souls-like gameplay, the action, everything is just here. The gameplay is extremely tight, and actually surprised me quite a bit when it comes to that, because it has such a good concept of it. If you guys haven't heard of much of this game, Steelrising is basically a game that is setting is in a fictitious French Revolution era, so it's basically during the French Revolution, but the twist is that instead of just having just the historical figures, it does have mechs, like these automats, basically these giant just robots, and they have their own, the main protagonist Aegis is basically a robot that is able to think and have feelings and do things for herself and everything, which is obviously part of the plot. But at the same time, all the enemies are gonna be robots and these interesting creatures that you find along the way, which are just like machines in a sense. And honestly, that itself is a pretty cool concept, and I was worried that this was gonna be messed up somehow, but from an artistic perspective, they did such an amazing job as far as like showing the different, like the mech, for example, your protagonist Aegis, she has awesome, like the whole design for her character is really cool. I actually really like the design, the way that you can customize it, the way that the weapons come out of her, because the weapons are attached to her, as an automaton. You have like the weapons in it, so you can pull them up and everything. It's all, honestly, all of that is really good. Not to mention the enemy variety, the different characters you meet along the way, all the historical figures that I'm sure you've seen paintings of them at some point. So it does have a really interesting game design, not just from again graphics, but everything in between, from like the game design itself to France during the French Revolution. All of that is really well made, and it really gives a sense of quality. Of course, this kind of games is a little bit shorter, on the shorter side compared to other Souls games and everything, but it does have a story. It has a full story from beginning to end. We do it with a lot of different characters. It reminded me of a combination that just not Souls like, but it had like a sense of we'll say Assassin's Creed in a sense, not in the gameplay or anything, but maybe more than like the storytelling. You do mission for historical figures. You kind of meet all the different bodies that were very influential during French Revolution, and then you also have like the main story and everything like that. You get different weapons, different attachments that you can do to your robot and everything. Honestly, all of this really surprised me. It's incredibly that this team, again, I played the other stuff, I wasn't really interesting. Ritual was a much better improvement from the previous games before, but this one definitely has such a level of polish and quality that I'm very shocked, and honestly it's fantastic. I can't say anything bad about it. I really enjoyed it. If anything, I will say as far as like criticism or anything, because obviously the game is not perfect, it does have some issues. Like I mentioned before, it's a little bit shorter, but not that bad. The traveling can be interesting at times, not in a kind of weird janky way, but there is so many different layers to it that it makes it really worth your time going back to other areas and re-exploring them and everything. I'll explain more in a second. One of my biggest issues with this game is actually in a game like this, which is really focused on action and everything, it does have some performance issues. Especially, it drops some frames every once in a while. It does feel a little jank on that sense, but it's not to the point that it's unplayable. It just happens every once in a while. But there are times where you're fighting a big boss or anything like that, and it will go from 60 to like 10 on frame rates, and that kind of stuff that can affect your gameplay, but not in a sense that it's like horrible or anything like that. It can happen maybe like once or twice for the entire fight, so it will affect you some, but it's not terrible. That it's not to the point that it'll just ruin the experience or anything like that. I still really feel like there's a big level of polish here when it comes to this compared to whatever they have done before. It definitely has a lot of quality to it. Overall, I really enjoyed the game. I think if anyone is interested in checking it out, if you're interested in playing a game that is a Souls-like, that has its own elements with a big story part on it and everything, definitely this is something worth checking it out. It's also not a full price game, which is fantastic for like a smaller game like this, which again I mentioned the time frame and the length of the game and everything. The fact that it's not a full price game is definitely a benefit for this. But again, if you're a Dark Souls fan, if you played Elden Ring, you're like, man, I really want to play another game like this, definitely pick up Steelrising. It does have a lot of stuff. The verticality on this game is really interesting too. I didn't even mention any of that. There's a bunch of attachments that you can get as you defeat certain bosses, like story bosses, and those add like layers to the gameplay. You get a grappling hook, you get like another kick that you can do when you can destroy walls. There's verticality aspects with the grappling hook and some of the other double jump features and everything. There's so much layers to this game. This game is definitely not just a Souls game. It does add a lot of things that other Dark Souls games, for example, never had before. But if you play things like Sekiro or Elden Ring, they do have that kind of stuff. It does feel like an evolution from those games, and it does feel like a step up in the right direction to kind of what I would like to see on future From Software games, honestly. And Spiders did an amazing job in this game. I'll say this is definitely gonna be another 8 out of 10 for me. A really good game. I think that this is almost like an 8.5. I'll give it a final 8.5 out of 10. Definitely did things that I did not expect it. This is my biggest surprise of the year. I will be honest with you. Never even heard of this game until a few days ago, and what it does here really impressed me. So check it out, guys. Definitely a game that you don't want to miss. I think if you're a Souls fan, I'm sorry, you want to check this game out. I think it's worth checking it out. And anyway, thanks so much for watching this, guys. If you're new, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.